This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and today I have Igor with me, and we are going to be talking about his music and how he got started in the industry, and also something that is coming out this month. So welcome to New Cleveland Radio.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you've been in the business a little while. What made you decide to pursue music of all industries that seems to be inundated with much talent?
Yeah. Well, it is. It's one of those things where it's something that you can't avoid doing. You can't not do it. I've always been musical. I studied music composition in college, but ultimately became a Russian major just because I wanted to travel more. And after some a few stints in Russia, I became a jazz musician of all things. I was a tenor sax player and played around here for several years. And then the jazz scene. I'm from Seattle. The jazz scene kind of dissolved. And while I was trying to transition into a film composer, I discovered that I really liked watching or writing pop music. So in 2011, I started writing songs about Seattle, and that became my first album.
How terrific. So I have to tell you, I love Seattle. I think it's one of the nicest places in the United States to visit. And so I think you're very lucky to be in that area of the country. When you decided, to study music, did you foresee that you would be composing and writing music, or did you think, well, this is just going to be something on the side? I'm going to use my language in Russian to pursue other dreams.
I wish I had done some, more long-term planning because for me it was just about writing music. It wasn't like this piece is going to lead to this, is going to lead to this, is going to lead to this. It was pretty much like, I feel like writing this thing right now, and we'll see what happens after that. It was just kind of, I tend to write a lot of music. Since 2011, I've made 22 albums.
Wow.
And with the 23rd got interrupted by COVID. And so that's kind of half in the can and half unfinished. But I'm just trying to coordinate with my engineer now, and so we can finish that up. And that will make it 6 albums that I've recorded just this year.
Wow.
I recorded 4 last year in the middle of a snowstorm, and also in the middle of sort of a family crisis. My father passed away right in the middle of me recording 4 albums, and then this COVID happening right in the middle of me recording 6 albums, and it was quite the ordeal.
I'm sure.
It still has, things are not bad here in Seattle. They were initially quite bad, and but the situation is moderated with in regard to COVID, and everything is slowly opening up. But my engineer wants to be extra cautious because he has young kids, and also I believe his mom has some immune issues and things like that. So he just wants he wants to be extra super sure. But he's a wonderful guy to work with, and I love making albums with him.
That's terrific. So let me ask you a little bit about your creativity and making these albums. Do you own the music outright? Or is your music subject to? I can't even think of the right word now as I'm thinking this. Is it licensed?
Oh, no, it's all my original stuff.
Beautiful.
I believe in these 23 albums that I've written. I have, they're, except for one album that I did last year, called The Century Limited, which was it's an all cover album of tunes that were made 100 years ago in the 19 teens.
Oh, wow.
Everything except for 2 songs were originals. And those two songs that aren't originals came on my very first album. And everything has been an original except for the all cover album. And, since it was the end of the decade, last year I felt obligated to do this music from the teens. And now, in this decade, I'm going to do several volumes of cover tunes from the 20s.
How wonderful!
And what I've tried to do is update them and make them sound like they belong in the modern era. Because tunes from the teens, music actually wasn't that great in the 19 teens. It was most recordings were not well done at all because they used them as demos to sell sheet music.
Okay.
And once they figured out at the end of the teens that people actually liked good arrangements played well and sung well, that kind of opened up a whole this great new era in recording. And plus there were technological innovations that made recordings sound better too.
Right.
They still sounded lousy because they were being played on 78s, but the overall quality of everything, both the sound recording and the quality of arrangements, went way up in the 20s.
Absolutely.
And it was sort of a golden era of American songwriting too. After kind of a really dismal, the teens were pretty dismal.
Sure.
But I managed to get a bunch of songs together and use both live and electronic instruments.
Sure. So as you talk about the recording changes have developed even in the last 10, 20 years.
Oh, yes.
And I mean, now you can actually record something right off of your computer. In many cases, you don't even need a soundboard. I think it's terrific that you have an engineer, but there are a lot of people who are out there, they're doing their own writing, production, and engineering today. And so that's why I asked the questions about licensing, because, there once was a time that everything had to be shared across the board, and it was difficult to even get your music played because of the licensing fees. So how can people find your music? Where can we stream it from?
Well, you can stream the whole discography, everything that's been released so far, which is 18 albums, at Bandcamp.
Okay.
And it's just longboat.bandcamp.com. And in addition, I do a podcast, and every week I take a Longboat song and dissect it and tell you what was going on. And sometimes I talk about it. Sometimes I go off on tangents. I tend to do that. We as humans, we do kind of expand on the subject.
Absolutely.
And I've got I think I just did my 31st episode. And if I keep doing one episode every week and don't record anything, which is, I think is completely impossible for me. But if I keep just doing one a week, I will have 6 years worth of material.
How wonderful. And and I love what you're doing, because a lot of us, when we listen to music, and especially for me, when I listen to something, I have all these questions like, what were you thinking when you wrote that? How does this apply to you? Because, sometimes you hear a song and you go, well, that's really my song. That's my life. Those are my words. And so trying to find out how it was composed and where those ideas came from should be very, very exciting. So how can we find your podcast so that we can let people know about that as well?
It's on iTunes, Spotify, all major platforms. It's called The Great Longboat Podcast. Okay. It's also on YouTube, also under Great Longboat Podcast. And also I'm going to have some music videos coming out very soon. I have one right now, which is for songs from the WoW and the current album that's out called The Wow and the Pow Volume 1. and it's called Safe at Home. And it originally started out as a song about escaping from the rat race.
Sure.
But then with all the lockdowns, it became kind of a bit of a coronavirus anthem. And it's got, 43,000 hits on YouTube. And it's all about, it's kind of about staying at home with those that you care about. And it's very, it was kind of a prescient song. It's about 75% applicable to what we were going through when the country was predominantly shut down. And then there's a video from that, and a new one for coming out about fake alternative medicine called All That Woo. And then I'm going to start releasing albums from this Basically Blue, which is coming out at the end of this month, Basically Blue Volume 1. And I'm very excited about that. I've got two songs that tell very involved stories. One is a variant of a Russian fairy tale, and the other is sort of a spy story for a guy who's wandering around East Berlin at in the mid '80s. And so those are going to be animated, and I'm working with animators right now, doing art direction, and it's really quite fun. I'm not recording now, but I'm sort of channeling my creative energy into getting these videos done.
Well, you are more than a composer of music and lyrics, obviously. Your vision goes way beyond. And, for those who are listening, a lot of us think, we have to do one thing in our life, okay, and do it and do it well. And it's great if you can, but the fact that you've just expanded into all these different formats of art has to really keep you excited each day when you wake up in the morning, because, you're doing something else and you're using your creative juices. Do you ever have time to just sit back and relax?
I've actually kind of taken the lockdown off. I prefer to write music in more or less complete solitude.
Okay.
And my lovely wife is she's a tech librarian, and she is working from home. So I always feel like I'm imposing on her when I'm making music, even though it's just via headphones.
Sure.
And everything like that. So I've actually taken some time off. I'm planning some new albums. And I'm actually doing research for them too. And but I'm only planning 2 albums for next year, and that seems a little bit more. I think I have to moderate that, because I'm finding that if you release too many, if you record too many albums, you have to release them too.
Right.
And you can. It's best to have minimum 2 months between the releases, and I'm just sort of trying to plan for getting 4 more albums released.
Okay.
And that's my backlog.
Now, do you get out and perform these in clubs or across the country, or?
Well, I can't now. I would love to tour,
Sure.
but it's kind of, I don't have enough of a fan base to do that now. And it's been just you allocate your resources where you feel your strengths are. And for me, it was always recording. I'm extremely organized when I get into the recording studio. And nowadays, if I have an electronic album, it will take me 4 days to record, start to finish. And live, using live instruments, it will generally take 6 days.
Okay.
So I've got that timetable sort of down, and so I'm good at recording. I'm very, very organized. The touring part I've played live a couple of times around Seattle, and I go to jazz jam sessions where I know guys who played on my album.
Sure.
And I get to sing I get to belt out a few of the sort of beatier, jazzier tunes that I've written, and that sustains me enough. But I am not a very well-known commodity around Seattle or around anywhere really.
Well,
And that's everybody's competing for mind space.
absolutely. And we're finding, at least here in the Midwest, and we thought COVID was under control, and it's reared its ugly head again in our area. But what we're seeing is that a lot of individuals like yourself, they're going back to the basics of not performing because they don't know when they can perform again. And so putting that music out on YouTube and, out on the streaming services, we get to hear it whenever we're available. And what I love about it is that when I take my walk every morning, I get to listen to, new music all the time. And I probably wouldn't be able to afford all those concerts. But one of the things I want our listeners to know, when they go to your website and they go to Bandcamp and they decide that they like your music, they need to buy your music. It's okay to listen to it, but you know what? We all have to support your talents, and we pursue that on this end.
I do appreciate that. As I've always said, that I would someday like to be popular enough to when I actually mind people pirating my music. But I mean, right now, people can stream it for free. I don't mind. I hardly, when I do my podcast, I always kind of have a email, a correspondence email, and to this point, I have not gotten one query from anyone, and so it's kind of a parallel with music. It's for a long time it's shouting into the void.
Well, you know what? It's okay because people are going to hear your voice. They're going to hear your wonderful music. We're going to continue to promote you from this end, and as you come up with new products, please share them with us, because you know what? Even though we are based in Cleveland, Ohio, we are not just Cleveland, and we reach people all over the world. And you know what? Let's let you do the same thing. You may not be traveling right now, but they can travel along on the internet to hear your voice. So,
well, that I really appreciate that.
So we want to thank you for joining us. Say hi to your lovely wife, who is busy working from home, and stay safe. Okay.
Oh, thanks very much. I want to tell you that you said such nice things about Seattle, but here it is, August 6th, and it is raining.
Yeah, but you know what? The sun will come out later in the afternoon. Isn't that typical? I spent about 3 weeks out in Seattle many, many years ago when my husband worked for a very small company at the time called Microsoft. They were in their beginning days, and we thought we were going to move out there, and so we were out there for 3 weeks. And during the day, it rained or was dreary, but by 4 or 5 o'clock, the sun came out, and I loved it. So it's a beautiful city.
And plus the rain is very conducive to sitting inside and writing music.
I would think so. So you know what? Keep writing, and we will follow you, okay?
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye now.
Okay, take it easy. Thank you. Bye-bye.